Once upon a time, in the big, hot, loud, beautiful city of Lagos, there was a man that everybody talked about. His name was Emeka Obi Nwosu. Emeka was not just rich, he was the kind of rich that made other rich men feel poor. He owned 3 houses on the island. He drove a black Rolls Royce that people stopped on the road just to take pictures of. His wristwatches cost more than most people's cars. When he walked into a room, the room went quiet, not because people were afraid, but because they were amazed. He was so handsome, very, very handsome, tall, dark, with a jaw that looked like God had carved it with a sharp knife. He was 38 years old, unmarried, and the whole of Lagos was watching. Every Lagos babe wanted Emeka, but Emeka did not want every Lagos babe. He was careful. He had seen too many men fall because of women. He had watched his own father lose everything to a woman who smiled sweet but had poison in her heart. So Emeka kept his walls high. He dated slowly. He observed carefully. He did not give his heart fast. But walls, no matter how high, can always be climbed. The one who climbed his wall first was a woman named Tiwa Adeyinka. She was 26, small and slim, with big eyes that sparkled like she was always laughing at a secret joke. She grew up in Mushin, one of the roughest parts of Lagos, where life was hard and dreams were expensive. But Tiwa had fought. She had worked 3 jobs at once, saved every kobo, and eventually built herself a small fashion business selling handmade clothes online. It was not a big business, but it was hers. She was proud of it. Tiwa and Emeka met by accident, or what looks like accident. She had been invited to the birthday party on the island by one of her customers. She did not want to go. She did not have the kind of clothes that island parties required, and she was tired. But her best friend Ronke dragged her out of her one-room apartment, said, "Iron that dress, put on that lipstick and move your body." So Tiwa went. And at the party, in a room full of glittering people, she was the only one who walked up to Emeka and said, "Your shoe is untied." She was not trying to impress him. She was not even sure who he was. She just noticed the shoe that was untied and said it. Simple. Emeka looked down, then looked up at her. Then he smiled. "Thank you," he said. She nodded and walked away. That was it. That was all. But Emeka watched her walk away and something moved in his chest. He was used to women running to him, touching his arm, laughing too loud at his jokes. This one had told him his shoe was untied and walked away just like he was nobody. He found out who she was before the party was over. They started talking. 1 call became 2. 2 became daily. Daily became every hour. And before 3 months had passed, Emeka Obi Nwosu, the billionaire who kept his heart locked, had given the key to a girl from Mushin who sold handmade clothes online. Lagos was shocked. But nobody was more shocked than the woman sitting in the shadows watching everything. Her name was Sandra Ekwueme. Now pay attention here, because Sandra is the one this story is really about. Sandra is the one whose hands are dirty. Sandra is the one you need to watch. Sandra was 34. She was beautiful in a sharp cutting way, the kind of beautiful that made men nervous. She had known Emeka for 6 years. They had dated on and off, like a light switch someone could not make up their mind about. She had been sure she would eventually be his wife. She had planned it. She had spent 6 years planting herself in his life like a seed, waiting to grow into something permanent. But then Tiwa came, and in 3 months, Tiwa had done what Sandra could not do in 6 years. Tiwa had made Emeka soft. Sandra sat in her car outside Emeka's office one day and watched Tiwa come out laughing, holding Emeka's hand, wearing a simple dress that probably cost 5,000 naira. And Emeka, this man who had never shown emotion in public, was looking at her like she was the whole sky. Sandra's hand tightened on the steering wheel. She did not cry or shake. She just breathed slowly and said to herself very quietly, "We will see." Those 3 words, that was all. But those words carried everything. A plan, a decision, a darkness that had been growing inside Sandra for months and was now ready to move. Sandra was not stupid. She was actually very intelligent, which made her dangerous. She did not rush. She did not make noise. She started small. First, she became Tiwa's friend. Yes, you heard that right. Sandra called Tiwa through a mutual contact, pretended she had heard about her fashion business, said she wanted to place order for corporate gifts. They met for lunch. Sandra was warm, funny, generous. She listened to Tiwa talk and smiled in all the right places. By the end of lunch, Tiwa was thinking, what a lovely woman. Tiwa did not know that Sandra was studying her. Every word she said, Sandra studied. Every fear Tiwa mentioned, Sandra filled it away. Every person Tiwa trusted, Sandra noted. Over the next 2 months, Sandra became a regular in Tiwa's life. She came to her shop. She referred customers. She brought food sometimes. She became the kind of friend who shows up and you think, this one is real. Meanwhile, in the background, Sandra was building a trap. She found someone to help her, a guy named Chooks, a low-level IT guy who Sandra had been quietly paying for months. Chooks was good at one thing, getting into phones, not physically, digitally. He could clone messages, plant fake ones, recover deleted things. He was not proud of what he did, but Sandra paid well, and Chooks needed money. Sandra gave Chooks one job, get into Tiwa's phone, find me something or make something that would destroy her. Chooks found something. He found old messages from a man named Dayo, an ex-boyfriend of Tiwa's who she had not spoken to in over a year. The messages were old and innocent, just regular old relationship conversations from when they were together. But Chooks, under Sandra's instructions, cut the messages, rearranged them, added things that were never said. He made it look like Dayo and Tiwa were still talking, still meeting. Made it look like Tiwa was in a relationship with Emeka just for his money and was still running back to Dayo on the side. It looked real. It looked very, very real. Sandra printed the messages carefully. She studied them. She practiced how she would deliver them. Then she waited for the right moment. The right moment came on a Tuesday. Emeka was planning something big. He had bought a ring, a real ring, not a small one. A ring that cost 11 million naira. A ring that meant, I am done looking, this is the one. He had told only one person. He had told Sandra, not because he trusted her with his secrets, but because she had called him that week, sounding very calm and mature, saying she had moved on and just wanted to be his friend. No bad blood, and could she come visit to catch up? Emeka, who was in a very, very good mood because of the ring, said yes. And in the middle of that visit, feeling happy and proud, she mentioned almost in passing that he was going to propose to Tiwa on Saturday. Sandra smiled. Wow, she's the lucky woman. Inside, Sandra was not smiling. Inside, Sandra had just confirmed her timeline. She had 4 days. On Wednesday evening, Sandra went to Tiwa's shop. She came with small chops and juice like always. Tiwa was happy to see her. They sat and talked and laughed. And then Sandra said, Hey, is everything okay with you and Emeka? Tiwa looked surprised. Yes, why? Sandra hesitated, looked away, looked back, shook her head slowly like she did not want to say anything. Sandra, what is it? Tiwa's voice changed. I do not want to show you this, I really do not, but if it was me, I would want my friends to tell me. She showed Tiwa the messages. Tiwa looked at the screen. Her face changed. She read the messages slowly, then she read them again. Her hands began to shake because she saw her own name. She saw what looked like Dayo's name. She saw the dates that was recent, very recent. Sandra, these are not real, Tiwa said. Her voice was small. I know it's hard to believe. No, Tiwa's voice got stronger. These are not real. I've not talked to Dayo in over a year. This is not me. Sandra put on a face of pain like she was suffering alongside her. Tiwa, I know this is shocking. I know you are going to deny it, but please just think. Is there any possibility that someone got access to your phone? Because these messages came from your number. I had someone check. Tiwa stood up, her heart beating too fast. She was confused and scared and angry all at the same time. Who sent you this? Tiwa demanded. I cannot say. They don't want trouble. Then I cannot believe it because there's no truth in this. Sandra left that night. She had planted the seed, but Tiwa did not keep quiet. Tiwa went home and called Emeka immediately. She told him everything, that Sandra had come, that she had shown her fake messages and something was wrong. Emeka's voice went flat and cold. Not cold at Tiwa, cold in a different way. The way a man goes cold when he's thinking very hard. Send me what she showed you, he said. Tiwa sent it. There was silence on the phone for a long time. Tiwa, Emeka said finally, I need you to trust me for the next 48 hours. Can you do that? What are you going to do? Just trust me. Do not call Sandra. Do not react. Just be normal. Tiwa did not fully understand, but she trusted him. Okay, she said. What Tiwa did not know that Emeka had a cousin, his cousin Ifeanyi, who worked in cybersecurity, real cybersecurity, the kind that big banks hired to protect their systems. Emeka had been planning to send Ifeanyi those messages from the minute Tiwa sent them to him, because something about them felt wrong to him. Too clean, too perfectly arranged. Real people's messages are messy. This one's read like a script. He sent everything to Ifeanyi with one message. Tell me if this is real. Ifeanyi called back in 4 hours. Brother, Ifeanyi said, these messages are edited heavily. Whoever did this knew what they were doing, but they made 2 mistakes. The timestamp formatting is slightly off, not the way that phone operating system normally formats it, and 3 of these messages were sent from an IP address that does not match any device registered to this woman. Someone was in her phone remotely. Emeka closed his eyes. Can you find out who? Give me 1 day. That was the longest 1 day of Emeka's life. Sandra was home, feeling confident. She had planted the seed. She expected the relationship to be cracking by now. She expected Emeka to be pulling away, asking questions, going cold. She had seen this plan work before. No, not on a billionaire, but on a regular man she had destroyed years ago. This time she had been more careful and more precise. She poured herself a glass of wine and told herself, by Saturday, there will be no proposal. Tiwa was home, trying to stay calm. She was praying, she was pacing. She did not understand what Emeka was doing, but she had said she would trust him, and she was holding on to that. Chooks was home feeling nervous. He did not know why he was nervous. He kept checking his phone. He kept looking at his door, and Emeka was sitting in Ifeanyi's office, watching his cousin walk, waiting patiently. Ifeanyi found the IP address. He traced it. It did not belong to Tiwa. It bounced through 2 servers, the kind of bouncing that amateur hackers use, thinking it makes them invisible. But Ifeanyi was not an amateur. He broke through. The address led to a laptop. The laptop was registered. The name on the registration was Chukwuemeka Daniel Nweze. But Ifeanyi had seen this laptop on a list before, on a watch list, because this same device had been involved in a phone fraud case 18 months ago, a case that had been settled quietly. Do you know anyone called Chooks? Ifeanyi asked. Emeka thought, then slowly, his jaw tightened. He had heard that name before. Sandra had mentioned a tech guy friend called Chooks 2 years ago, just in passing. He had not thought anything of it then. I know who did this, Emeka said. His voice was very quiet, very still, the kind of quiet that is more dangerous than shouting. Emeka did not go to Sandra's house. He did not call her and shout. He did not post anything. He did not do what most people would do. He called a lawyer first, then a police. Not the regular police, but a friend who was an assistant commissioner. He sent everything to that friend. The digital evidence, the IP address, Ifani's full reports, everything. Then he called Sandra. He said very calmly, "Sandra, can you come to my office tomorrow morning? I want to talk to you about something." Sandra felt a small flutter on her chest. She told herself it was nothing. She had been to his office before. She said yes. She dressed nicely the next morning. She put on her best face. She was already thinking of what to say, how she would look concerned, how she would pretend to be on Emeka's side. Then she would slowly feed him more doubt, like poison into water. She walked into his office smiling. The smile died the second she saw who was in the room. There were two plainclothes police officers. There was a lawyer she did not recognize. There was Ifani sitting with a laptop open, and there was Emeka sitting on his desk looking at her with eyes that had no warmth at all. "Sit down, Sandra," he said. She could not move. I said, "Sit down." She sat. Emeka did not raise his voice once. He just talked, slowly, calmly. He laid out everything. The fake messages, the IP address, chooks, the laptop, the trail. He put printed documents in front of her, one by one, like cards on a table. Sandra's face went through 5 different expressions in 2 minutes. Shock, denial, fear, calculation. She was still thinking of how to get out. And finally, something she had not shown in a very long time. She broke. Not loudly or dramatically. She just started shaking and her eyes filled up. And she looked at Emeka and said, I just did not want to lose you." Emeka looked at her for a long time. "You never had me, Sandra. Not really. And what you did, just trying to destroy an innocent woman, that is not love. That is evil." She nodded to the officers. Sandra was escorted out of his office that morning. She was charged with cybercrime and criminal conspiracy. Chooks, who had already been picked up the previous evening because Emeka's police friend had moved quickly, had already confessed everything. He told them Sandra's name, Sandra's instructions, Sandra's money. He cooperated fully, hoping for leniency. The case was not swept under the carpet. Emeka made sure of that. Tiwa was in her shop when her phone rang. It was Emeka. "It is done," he said. She did not fully understand what done meant yet. He explained everything, slowly, carefully, so she could follow. As he talked, Tiwa sat down on the floor of her shop, right there on the floor, between the fabric rolls and the unfinished dresses, and she cried. Not because she was sad, but because she had been ready to doubt herself when she saw those messages. A part of her, a small scared part, had thought, what if people are right about me? What if I do not deserve this life? What if I am not enough? She had fought that part. She had told Sandra the truth. She had called Emeka immediately. She had not hidden anything, and the truth had protected her. She cried because the truth had protected her. On Saturday, the same Saturday Sandra had been sure would never come, Emeka took Tiwa to a quiet rooftop restaurant overlooking the Lagos water. No crowd, no fanfare, just the two of them, the waiter, the evening sky, the smell of jollof rice from the kitchen. He did not make a speech. He was not a speech kind of man. He just reached into his pocket and put the ring on the table between them. Tiwa looked at it. Then she looked at him. "You knew all week?" she said. "You were carrying this all week while all that was happening?" "Yes," he said. "And you still wanted to give it to me?" "More than before. Because I saw you. When everything was happening, you did not run. You did not fight dating. You told me the truth and you waited. Do you know how rare that is?" Tiwa looked at the ring for a long time. Then she looked at Emeka. "Yes," she said. She did not even wait for him to ask the question properly. She just said yes. And Emeka laughed. A real laugh, the kind that came from deep inside. And he put the ring on her finger. Lagos talked about the story for weeks. People said, "Did you hear what Sandra tried to do?" People said, "Can you imagine? 6 years and she lost to a Mushin girl in 3 months." People said, This is what happens when you play games with someone's heart. But the most important thing, the thing that people sometimes forgot in all the gossip was this. Tiwa had not won because she was prettier. She had not won because she was richer. She had not won because she had connections or schemes or plans. She had won because she was real. And in a city of performance and pretending and sharp-toothed ambition, realness was the rarest and most powerful thing of all. Sandra did not go to prison in the end. Her lawyers worked hard and she took a plea deal, paid a large fine and was placed on probation, but she lost everything that mattered to her in Lagos. Her reputation, her social circle, the life she had built on the island. She moved quietly out of the city and nobody heard from her again. Chuks lost his job and his career in tech. He had to start over completely. Emeka and Tiwa, they got married 8 months later. Small ceremony. Tiwa's mother from Mushin and Emeka's family from the east. 2 very different words sitting on the same side. On the wedding day, Tiwa wore a dress she made herself. It was not the most expensive fabric. It was not designers, but every stitch was hers. Every thread was her own hands, her own skill, her own story. When she walked out in that dress, Emeka put his hand over his mouth because she was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. And that is the end of this story. But let it sit with you for a moment, because Sandra was intelligent. Sandra was beautiful. Sandra was patient and she planned carefully and she knew exactly what she was doing, and she still lost. She lost not because she was weak, but because she was wrong. No amount of cleverness can make a wrong thing right. The plan was brilliant, but the heart behind it was rotten. And rotten things, no matter how well you dress them up, always smell in the end. Lagos is a city of games, and the ones who wins are not always the ones who play the hardest. Sometimes, the winner is the one who refuses to play at all. The moral lesson reminds us that the greatest weapon you will ever carry is not your beauty, your money, your connections, and not your plans. It is your truth. Tiwa did not fight Sandra. She did not scheme. She did not run around Lagos gathering allies or plotting revenge. The attack came. She did one simple thing. She told the truth immediately and trusted the right person with it. And that one thing destroyed a plan that took months to build. Sandra was the smartest on paper. She planned longer. She moved quietly. She knew more people. But she built everything on a lie. And a lie, no matter how strong it looks from the outside, has no foundation. One push and it falls.